Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining this webinar on Ecodesign for Sustainable Products Directive and how do you comply to this particular regulation. I'm Sai. I'm the Product Marketing Manager at EcoChain. I have with me Emma, who's the Education Lead. Hi, Emma.
Hi, hello.
Yeah, and I also have
Welcome to the
Nick with
webinar.
me
I'm
here,
excited.
who's... Oh, sorry. Yeah, go ahead, Emma.
Oh, sorry. No, please go ahead in
Yeah,
introducing everybody.
Yeah, I also have Nick here who's running the show behind the scenes. So, yeah, we are gathered here today to help decode a fastly approaching regulation in the EU. And we hope you're all excited to see what's in store. We'll just give a couple of minutes for everyone to join us because it's just after lunch. Let's give them 1 or 2 minutes. Let's see how many more people will join, and then we can jump right into it. In the meantime, for the ones who are already here, once again, thank you so much for joining. And if you have any questions, you can drop them in the questions tab. And you also have a chat tab to ask any of your doubts as well. But we urge you to drop your questions in the questions tab so that we can get to them during the session, hopefully. But if not, we'll also send you a follow up with the answers. But yeah, cool. I already see a lot of people joining, which is great to see. Just give everyone maybe 20 more seconds, and then we can get started. All right. I think we've given them enough time, so we can get started. Once again, to the ones that just joined, thank you so much for joining. This is a webinar on the Ecodesign for Sustainable Products Directive, fastly approaching regulation in the EU. And basically, how do you comply? I'm Sai, I'm the Product Marketing Manager. I have with me Emma, who's the education lead and who will be decoding the regulation itself for you. And I also have Nick with me, who's running the show behind the scenes. So quickly taking a look at the agenda for today, what do we have in store for you? Emma, if you can go to the...
Oh,
Yeah.
is it not working? Now we're at the agenda, right?
No, I don't.
Okay, let me share again. Let me share again.
Yeah, sorry about that. Just give us a couple of seconds.
Here we go. Do you see the agenda?
Yeah, I do. I do now. Thank you so much. So, as I was saying, we have a great agenda for today, which basically goes into why the ESPR regulation is being put in place. What is it about? An introduction to the regulation, basically. How can product footprinting be of effective use in complying to the ESPR, and how using software, product footprinting or LCA software, can help you in complying to this regulation. Um, that's the agenda for today. And basically, if you go to the next slide.
Is that not moving for you? It's not moving, right?
Oh, I think it's an issue with my laptop basically, because yeah, I do see that you have the next slide. But without further ado, we'll jump right into the agenda, and I'll hand over the stage to Emma, who'll go into the ESPR itself. Over to you, Emma.
Yes, thank you. So happy that you're all here, and hopefully we can help you a little bit today. So yeah, first let's go a little bit into the background of the ESPR. So why is it even there? So the ESPR is a part of the Green Deal, and if you're in the EU or have some kind of relation to the EU, you might have heard about this. So this is the big plan that targets carbon neutrality by 2050 for the EU. And of course, to achieve that, you need a little bit more detailed regulations on different areas. So that's what the ESPR also is. And the ESPR is focusing on sustainable product design. You might have already noticed that. And what's maybe interesting to know is that the ESPR is actually based on a different directive that was already there, the Ecodesign directive in 2009. So this only focused on energy-related products, but now this is being extended to a broader product scope, so to almost every product in the EU. Now, why is this important for the Green Deal? Well, you might have already heard this fact, but actually most of the product's impact is determined in the design phase. So in the design phase, you also have most ways to improve a product's impact. And that's essentially why for the eco-design regulation, they're focusing on this, and why it's aiming to just make these key potential impact reductions to the different phases of the life cycle, like reducing raw materials being used or the environmental footprint during the use phase, that kind of things. Maybe less waste or more circularity. So this is all determined in the design phase of the product already. And that's why we need a sustainable product design regulation. Now, moving on to what the ESPR entails in a little bit more detail. Like I said, the ESPR is aiming to enhance product sustainability across the EU market. So we're quoting the text from the regulation actually here. So sustainable products as the norm, that's the idea. And what's really important is that they are really focusing a little bit on energy efficiency and on the circular economy. And to do that, they're taking a life cycle perspective. And I think that's really important to remember throughout this presentation. So yeah, in the end, sustainability is about more than just producing a product that might be more sustainable during the production phase, but it's really about taking the life cycle perspective to make sure that it's also more sustainable over the entire life cycle. We'll share the slides with you later after the webinar, and then you can also use the links in the slides. So for example, on this slide, you see a link to an article. You can all get that from the slides at the end of the presentation. Now, how is the ESPR going to help products become more sustainable over the entire life cycle? Well, of course, it's very hard right now to just make a set of rules and then say this applies to every product and every product becomes more sustainable from this. So that's why the ESPR is a framework kind of regulation. So there's a few rules already concretely specified in the ESPR, but it mainly provides a framework to make more product-specific rules based on that. And this will be done through delegated acts. So these delegated acts will be developed by the European Commission, and once they're entering into force, they will establish specific rules for certain product groups. And this will kind of, the approach here is that they're going to address one or a few product groups at a time and then move on to the next ones. So it's not like all products will have rules at the same time. It will kind of be a phased out approach. So the first rules might be applicable in 2027 or 2028, about that time. It might be a little bit earlier because the timeframes stated on this slide are in the ESPR, but there can also be exceptions made. But this is approximately what you should take into account, this time frame. Now, maybe a first question for the people here. So Do you think that your business will be affected by the ESPR? So very short answers, yes, no, or I don't know. So let's see what people
Let's
say.
let's indeed see what the people think. All right, there's a lot of yeses I see,
Yeah,
and yeah,
also
a
some
lot of
other names, but
yeah, a
mainly
lot of
yeses. Let's
yeah.
give
We'll
it a few
give
more
give
seconds.
them yeah, give them 10 more seconds.
Yeah, but we see mainly that like 80% says yes, I think we will be affected, and then 5% no, and then 18% in the meanwhile, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So let's share the results. I'm gonna, okay, yeah,
Yeah,
those are the results. So moving on, giving you a little bit of the
that's
answer.
actually good input. That if you already think that you're going to be affected, but yeah, if you are or not, we'll also decode now. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. This is the moment. So the ESPR can cover most products that are sold in the EU. There are a few exceptions. So like certain medical products and something related to food. I'm not exactly going to go into exceptions today, but you can look that up in the regulation. But for most other products, in theory, the ESPR, there could be rules for your product. But of course, those delegated acts would then have to be implemented, or the industry would have to take self-regulation measures. But yeah, it could indeed affect a lot of companies in the EU. One of the first industries that will be affected already is the apparel and footwear industry, because the ESPR includes a ban on the destruction of unsold consumer goods in these industries in the coming years. And we'll go into these details a little bit later. And what's also happening is that the ESPR works in working plans, and the first working plan will be implemented in the spring of 2025. And there was actually just a research report published that advised on which product categories should be included in that working plan to have the most impact. And those are the products you see in the picture below. So the final products are tires, textiles, shoes, and furniture were advised to take into account there. And then for intermediate products, it was iron and steel, commodity chemicals, and non-ferrous and non-aluminum metal products. So these products can expect that there will be rules in the coming years in the ESPR that affect their industries. Yeah. And a little bit more about the rules then. So what kind of rules can these be? Well, it's quite broad. So first off, like we already talked about the apparel and the footwear industry, there's already a ban on destroying their unsold consumer goods in those industries, but this can also be extended to other industries in the delegated acts. And then for the delegated acts, there are specific rules that can be made. So first off, they can be made on green public procurement. So there are rules in the ESPR that need to be taken into account once the delegated act is published and entering into force. And yeah, so that. Then there can also be information requirements for products. So certain information that you need to provide with your product, and there can be performance requirements, so requirements that your product needs to adhere to. And if you don't comply to the rules in the delegated acts, you actually cannot sell your product in the EU anymore once these enter into force. So a little bit more about these different elements. So first off, the ban on destroying unsold goods. So for footwear and apparel from July 19th, 2026, large enterprises are not allowed to destroy unsold footwear or apparel anymore. And for medium enterprises, this will be in effect in 2030, and small and micro companies are exempt from this regulation, and this is for any textiles or footwear pretty much. Now, onto like the product specific requirements that you can have. So one of them is the information requirements. These provide information about for example, the circularity of products or the sustainability of products. And things you can think about is the digital product passport. So this will be mandatory for any product that has a delegated act that has come into force, and this can be attached to your product with a data carrier like a QR code, for example. Then we also have some performance classes that you might be requested to share, or substances of concern, or your substances in your product in general. And yeah, these are some examples. And if we zoom in on the digital product passport a little bit, because that's a big thing in the ESPR, it's essentially like a passport that will be available with your product through a data carrier, and there will be and this will be available for consumers, for example, to compare products, but also to look up things and stuff like that. So the idea is that everything becomes way more transparent, and that allows for comparability between products. Well, what kind of information can you think of? So there's two elements. There's required information, and these are quite technical things like the name of the product. It needs to be recognizable per product, and the producer, that kind of stuff. But also in the delegated acts, they might require specific things. These are not decided on yet. There's just like the potential things that they can ask for. Um, and those can be related to environmental sustainability or the technical performance, maybe circularity indicators, stuff like that. So this can be decided, but it's not sure, like it's not certain that these things will be included in digital product passports. And then the second type of requirements that they can make within the ESPR are the performance requirements. So these are rules governing the product performance. Think about durability rules, or recyclability, or maybe something with a certain environmental impact that a product needs to have at least. So as an example, before, of course, for the energy intensive products, there were already rules, and then you also had to have an energy label. So it could be that you have to get a certain energy labels or things like that in this one. Now another question, and this is kind of, we just kind of sped through the whole ESPR, but now we're almost to the point where you get to ask questions. So getting ready, what are your
Yeah.
first steps towards compliance, and have you already thought of it? So these are the options. I don't think I need to read them.
Hmm.
Let's
Indeed.
see.
Let's see what the people think. And yeah, as you mentioned, Emma, it is quite interesting that so many factors are considered when it comes to regulations such as this, and it is pretty nuanced in that sense, right?
Yeah, it's very nuanced, and it's also still very unclear. And of course, there's still some time until things come into effect. But it's yeah,
But it always helps to get ahead of it, and get started on the journey towards compliance. But as you said, for example, the apparel and footwear industry probably needs to start much earlier than the other ones then, right?
yeah, yeah, definitely, because there's already concrete rules, especially the ban on
Hmm.
destroying their kind of unsold goods is really a thing that they need to think about. And that can have a lot
Yeah.
of effect, because it really can affect the way that companies buy in their inventory. And yeah, they really have to think about that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
Uh,
see. Oh, yeah, a lot of people have voted already, and looks like measure product footprints and identify environmental hotspots. That seems to be the emerging winner.
yes. Yeah, and then we also have some people that don't know, or they want to wait for more clarity. So it's
Hmm.
nice to know. But overall, indeed, interesting to see how measuring product footprints is a big thing here.
Yeah, yeah, that's yeah, you guys on the right track then.
Yeah. So some time for questions, to answer some of your questions. I have to say we don't have a lot of questions yet from you, but
Yeah.
please put them in the chat, because we love answering questions.
Hmm.
At
Yeah.
least I do.
If you if you have any questions on the stuff that we already discussed so far, please add them in the questions tab. I do see um, like one Emma, like uh, like how will the ESPR be enforced? Is one of the questions that's coming up.
Yeah, that's a really good question, and I have to say I don't know if I can give the best answer to this question ever. But what I can say is that there's really I read the entire ESPR. It was a lot of work. There were a lot of passages in there about knowing that people don't comply and then still putting like product out on the market. So essentially, yeah, there will be definitely governance around this. How that exactly looks like, I can't tell you, but you are definitely liable if you put a product on the market in the EU that doesn't comply with the ESPR. So it's quite strict. It's not just something for fun. You actually do really have to comply. There can also, I think, be financial, how do I say this? Like financial penalties, and like
Yeah.
as soon as you're literally not allowed to sell your product if it doesn't comply to a delegated act once that has come into motion. And if you do, you're really just not complying with EU rules essentially.
So in that sense, there is like an apparent risk of losing out on business if you don't
Yeah,
comply.
yeah, and also facing financial penalties or even legal penalties if you do not comply. Like that's
Hmm.
all in the ESPR that they can actually. It's actually really a legal thing. If you don't
Yeah.
follow it, you will
Yeah.
suffer consequences.
Yeah. It is great that the EU is taking this seriously, but it also spells a lot of effort for the companies involved, of course.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
definitely. It's really, yeah,
Hmm. Another one from Omar. It's how will public authorities authorized from EU conduct information check on the digital product passport to assure the right information is presented on it?
yeah. That was also not really from the top of my head something I saw specified in there. However, the digital product passports. Well, actually, no. There were some things that I know. So one thing is your product is not allowed to perform differently. I think we all remember the Volkswagen scandal where the product performed differently when it was tested than in real
Yeah.
life. So that is illegal according to the ESPR. There was a whole page about that pretty much. So if there are certain tests that you need to do, for example, or certain measurements you need to do, and they're still developing methods per product group also to get those tests in order. So you will also that will all be specified in the delegated acts, and you have to do those things. And essentially, the ESPR like um, specifies that you can't cheat in those tests.
Hmm.
And for the digital product passport itself, it's a public thing, right? It should be available publicly. So of course you can always check your digital product passport because in essence everybody in the EU should be able to check that at all times because it
Hmm.
has to be on your product. Hope that helps
Yeah.
a little bit.
Do you want to do one more before going on to
Yes.
the next section? Yeah, can you give us an idea of the specific general information that goes into DPPs, digital product passports?
Yeah. Okay, I can. I don't know it by heart, but I can give you, I will just give me 20 seconds to look it up.
Yeah.
This one. Okay, digital product passport. Yeah, so, okay, general information to be included on the DPP. No, this is not the, sorry. Things, for example, like uh, yeah, products technical performance can be on there, materials and their origins, repair activities, recycling capabilities, and life cycle environmental impacts. These are things that can be on there. And then regarding the product technical thing, there was a little bit more detail on things that had to be on there for sure. But yeah, if you want to know that, there's at the end of the ESPR, there's a annex and it specifies that exactly, so you can look that up. It's downloadable on the EU website. But that would be
Hmm.
a little bit the idea.
Yeah.
I think maybe this is enough for the first round of questions, and then we move on and
Yeah,
we deal with more.
yeah. There are a few more, but we can get to them a bit
Yeah,
later. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. We'll have plenty more time to discuss
Yes. All right. Yeah.
questions. So
There
the
were a
next
lot
topic,
about product footprints and LCA, so
exactly.
I think it's good that we
So
go to the next section. Yeah.
yeah,
Over to you.
yes. So the next part of this presentation is about product footprinting or LCA and its related relation with the ESPR. And maybe as a first thing, before we go into this, a question for you. So do you know, are you already aware what life cycle phase of yeah, pick maybe your most important product or product that comes to mind, has the largest contribution to its footprint? That's the
Yeah.
poll. So is that do you know already or yeah,
Hmm. See a lot of, oh, it's quite neck and neck, to be honest.
yeah,
I'm not sure the raw materials and the production phase.
cool. And I see a
That's the
few and
major one. And the end of life, of course. Okay,
yeah,
that's quite interesting.
yeah,
Oh, nothing for the transportation or distribution phase.
no, which is
Interesting.
actually, to be honest, we could expect that because
Mhm.
that thing we can already say generally. If unless you transport something by plane, is usually not
Mhm.
the biggest impact of your product. Like if
Mhm.
transportation is your biggest impact of your product, and you're yeah, depending on the product, sometimes you're already doing something probably well.
Yeah,
Uh, if that's the biggest thing. I think,
exactly.
yeah, most raw materials, so that's interesting to
Hmm.
know.
Yeah.
That's actually not uncommon. That's also something we've seen before. But yeah,
Hmm.
thanks for sharing.
Yeah, there's also a lot of I don't know, I'm not sure, which is also
Yeah,
fine.
yeah,
That is the reason to do a life cycle assessment anyway, right? So
exactly, exactly.
yeah.
So, okay, why life cycle assessment slash product footprinting is actually the same. So I'm going to use the two terms a little bit interchangeably. Well, of course, this is called the Ecodesign for Sustainable Products Regulation, and ecodesign essentially always goes beyond production because it's about sustainability over the entire life cycle. Like I said before, you can reduce your production impact, but if that means your product cannot be recycled anymore, then you might actually be increasing the impact of the product over the entire life cycle, for example. So that's why it's always really important to look over the entire life cycle of the product, and that's also what the ESPR is doing. So in making the rules, they're going to look at the entire life cycle of the product and see, with what rules they can reduce the impact of these products most, and also depending on what's feasible, of course. But yeah, then you already know that those rules will be based on the life cycle of your product. And for that reason, knowing your product's footprint helps you prepare for compliance because you might be able to already, yeah, think a little bit more about what kind of things they might be including in the regulation, and you can already reduce the impact of your product, for example. So this really helps you to invest in the right sustainability measures for the coming years, essentially. I think that's an important reason to start investigating your own product footprint.
Hmm.
And now we have another question for the public here. So do you already have experience with product footprinting or LCA? And this can also be product carbon footprinting, for
Yeah,
example. So
yeah, but more so on the products because that's where the
yeah,
impact is. Yes.
yeah, exactly.
All right, let's see. A lot of no's, which is
Also a few yeses.
yeah. Oh, yeah. Yes, is catching up.
Yeah, a lot of people that did it in Excel, I see.
Hmm. Then you probably know the pain of doing it on
Yeah,
Excel.
yeah, you probably do.
Yeah.
I have a lot of respect for people that did it in Excel and actually got a nice answer. Yeah.
Yeah. But we
Cool.
also have solution, but more on that later.
Yeah. I think with that we can maybe end this one. No is the winning answer, but
Mhm.
also a lot of yeses with different yes options.
But the
Yeah.
good thing is that like you can also do it. I think that's
hmm
the takeaway from this, that it's
It,
not just for experts, that you can do it yourself. Yeah,
no, it's not rocket science, so that's
yeah.
important to realize.
It is
So,
science, but it's not rocket science. Yeah.
exactly. Thank you. Well, second reason or second thing to discuss about product footprinting and ESPR is to, preparation for the information requirements. So, yeah, this is a big vague thing because we don't know, but delegated acts might require environmental impact information in the digital product passport. So it can be this way, but it's not already obligatory with the ESPR. However, if you have to calculate it, then calculating a product footprint, especially for all of your products or for the full life cycle, it takes time. And first, you have to learn about the product footprinting process, which is not rocket science, but it's still, like Sai said, science. There is a methodology that you need to follow. There are rules for every product for the calculation. You need to somehow collect all the data on your products and get that into a software or into your other chosen solution in the right way. Then you need to get it verified. Like there's a whole process around this, and that takes time. So it's important to realize that, and maybe already start learning about it a little bit. Maybe not just for ESPR reasons, but for other reasons, because it's just it's definitely doable and it can give you a lot of value as a company, but you have to learn about it essentially. And in that way, so yeah, it could be that starting product footprinting now can help you fulfill information requirements. And then a third thing is to stay competitive. So under the ESPR, environmental impact will be increasingly prominent in buyer decisions. So consumers might get some environmental impact insights from the digital product passport, and I can actually start comparing on environmental impact and sustainability, and also the green procurement rules that will be implemented for every product that gets a delegated act that goes into effect, um, will make that for public organizations, buying sustainably becomes a bigger part of their tendering process. So it's, the second one especially is very certain that that will happen under the ESPR. So it's important to stay competitive there. And if you can already reduce your impact a little bit now, that might actually get you a competitive advantage. So that's really important to realize. Um, this can help you stay competitive. And now, with that, we're already at the second round of questions. Sai, yeah.
Yes, let me pick one out for you. There are a lot of questions, by the way, which is really great to see. Thank you so much. Please keep them coming. There are a few similar ones, so I hope you got the answers to that. Let me ask you this. Yeah, how detailed does a life cycle assessment need to be to meet the requirements for the digital product passport?
Yeah, right now for me that's really hard to answer because of course the requirements haven't been set. So
Mm.
these are set in the declared act, delegated acts for each product or product group. So it's really hard to answer this question right now. Um, Yeah, can we say something about the detail? Yeah, I think in general, in a life cycle assessment or a PCF, product carbon footprint, it's really important that you get the details right for most of the impacts, but you don't need to get like everything right. Like if it only differs like 1% for your impact, then that's not the big thing, right? It's about getting most of it right. Um, yeah, I think that's in general important. So yeah.
Yeah, cool. There is another one about the framework. So there would be product specific rules in the ESPR framework. Now we have LCA, which is governed under ISO 140400 or 14044, PCF, which is 14067, and we have the PCRs as well, the product category rules. Will How will the ESPR complement these existing frameworks, or would there be a change in methodologies or definitions for LCA or PCF itself in the ESPR specific rules?
Yeah, so the ESPR, on the one hand, says that they're going to develop all of these methodologies to measure things that are not there yet, but on the other hand, they also state that they want to, use those existing methodologies like product environmental footprint, the PEF in Europe, and that kind of things. I think you can see it as the EN 15804, so the rules that are currently there for certain LCA things, like EN 15804 for construction and PEF for other products.
Hmm.
Um, those are there, and those are rules how to measure your product carbon footprint or how to measure your LCA results, the environmental footprint. And then
Hmm.
the ESPR is more about rules for how your product should perform or what you should share. But I don't think, but this is of course a little bit of an interpretation because it's all not there yet. Um,
Hmm.
that they will then also start requiring different things in terms of how you measure, because that already has been developed and there's been a lot of work in that. And for example, in the Netherlands, the entire construction market depends on construction LCA standards and the way to calculate. And the ESPR states in about 20 different places that it should all be feasible and stuff like that for businesses. So I don't think it makes sense to worry now about different methods to calculate your footprint. And there's very high chances of just building on the existing standards. Like there's a lot of money in that. And yeah, so I would expect that they use the existing LCA PCF standards. However, the
Hmm.
ESPR then complements them in setting rules on what you need to share and also setting rules on what performance your product needs to make according to these standards, essentially.
Yeah, cool. Do you want to do one more, or
Yeah, let's do one more.
yeah? Did we already do this? How detailed does a life cycle assessment need to be? Did
Yeah,
we do
that
that?
will be
Yeah.
this. I
Yeah.
see one here. I see one here. It says, how do we know how much time we have left until
Yeah.
delegated acts become effective? How much time is
Hmm.
left to prepare the company? That's a very good question. So, okay, you saw those product categories that I shared before. So I'm gonna go back to them for a second now. These? No, these. So these products will likely be in the first working plan that will be implemented, and this working plan will be implemented in the spring of 2025.
Hmm.
Now, for 2025, uh, is stated in the ESPR that it has to take at least 18 months before the first delegated acts can take effect. So that will be the end of 2026 before there might be rules announced for your product. However, you don't need to comply at that time. So if those rules are, if any delegated acts are going into effect, then you still have 18 months to become compliant. So the first compliancy would be the earliest from end of 2027, but likely somewhere in 2028. That would be something. And in general, whenever under the ESPR new rules for certain product groups are taking effect, you would have 18 months to make sure that you comply to these rules before they actually become something that you need to do. So I hope that answers that question. So you don't know exactly how far in the future your product will have rules, but yeah, at least you have 18 months. Um, and for now, you still have the extra 18 months for the first working plan that they specified. I hope that helps.
Yeah.
If there's more
Yeah.
questions about that.
Yeah. That's a good question. Good answer. I think now then we can move to the final section, and then we do
Yeah,
have another moment to answer questions later. So please do keep them coming. Do keep your questions coming.
yeah.
Um, yeah,
Let me just
let's
take the
jump
slides
to the
to where we
next
need to
section
be.
then.
Here we go.
Yeah. So the final section for the webinar today is basically how product footprinting software can help you with complying to the ESPR. As Emma mentioned, there are a lot of rules being put in place wherein you will have to start providing environmental impact information of your products, and not just the ESPR, but there are other regulations coming up as well. So as a lot of you mentioned that you haven't done product footprints or LCS before, or you've done it using Excel, or you probably delegated it to an external consultant, then yeah, it could be due to a number of reasons. You might have known that product footprinting software is there, but you might have thought it's for experts, but or it might have been expensive, things like that. But we're here to basically tell you that it's not the case. There are a lot of software like ours, and not just ours, but a lot of software out there that can help even the non-experts get started with product footprints, be it a PCF or a full LCA as well, and that in turn can, of course, get you in the process of complying to regulations such as the ESPR. We've outlined the process in largely three steps. It's basically establishing a product impact baseline, evaluating product improvement scenarios, and sharing the impact of your improved product. We'll quickly go into detail of what these mean, basically. So what does like product impact baseline is basically to get an environmental footprint, not a full verified LCA, but initial insights of your product on different levels. So on a component level, on different phases, on different input items, what is the actual footprint of your product? So once you get that baseline, that gives you a starting point. Again, this need not be a complete LCA. This can just be the first version of your product footprint to see where you stand. So in this example, it's 0.95 kgs of CO2. So you already have that particular baseline, and then that you can use as a springboard to execute on the next actions that you have. The second step would be to, once you have that number, evaluate product improvement scenario. So one of the four pillars we have when it comes to product footprints in our software is model, measure, improve, and share. So basically you model your product in the software, you measure its impact, which is what we saw in the first step. The third step is to improve. It's to see how you can get to an improved product. So what would that entail? It's basically throughout the life cycle, you can think about alternative materials, alternative processes involved. It could be green energy. It could be a different way you basically manufacture the product itself. Different suppliers maybe. And throughout the whole life cycle, you can look at the repair options, the transportation scenarios, and you can model all of that in software like ours, basically, to see how does it compare. How does it compare with the first step, which is the impact baseline that you have, which is your product now as is. And then you can basically create a scenario, an alternative scenario, to see how it could be. And this in turn would help you drive a lot of decision making, which is basically the third step. So once you have those improvement scenarios in place, the next step would be to think about sharing it. You've put in all of the effort, you've put in the effort to calculate your product's impact, and then you've put in the effort to see how can you improve those products as well. The next logical step would be to use that particular information, be it internal or external. Internally, you can use it to drive better decision making, as Emma mentioned, and as you might already know. 80% of a product's impact is is decided during the design phase, and basically having this baseline data and the improvement scenarios gives you the opportunity to address the impact during design phase. So you can create a better version of your product that complies to all of the requirements from the regulation, as well as makes sure that it gives you that competitive advantage as well. So you can, with the help of this data, which is backed up data, you can basically make a claim and say that you've put in all of the effort, and you can use it as a springboard to position yourself in a better light when it comes to your competitors. So you can include that information as well in the digital product passport, as a lot of you asked for. Environmental impact, of course, is a major factor to be considered. So yeah, so once you have those, once you have the impact baseline number, and then you have your improved scenario number as well, you can basically start executing on creating that better product, but also use the footprint number effectively in your digital product passport and in your internal decision making, but also externally with your potential customers, and use it as a competitive advantage piece. And with that, we get to the final moment to ask your questions. So if you have any questions about the regulation itself, or about how software can help, keep adding them to the questions tab. In the meantime, I will try to pick one that we can tackle today. I have one for you, Emma. Do exporters have to think about the ESPR compliance as well? And if so, if they're exporting to the EU, how do they ensure compliance?
Oh, that's a really good question. So, the ESPR holds for products that are sold in or being provided in like a rental construction. So essentially products that are being used or sold in the EU markets. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, how it works exactly for exporters and the whole administrative things around it, I don't know. But in principle, if you sell it to EU consumers, for sure you have to comply. Of course, if there's, and especially if there's a dedicated X for your product. Um,
Mm-hmm.
in case products are being manufactured outside of the EU and they're being imported,
Mm-hmm.
um, then they also need to comply. So a distributor or anybody that buys products or gets products from outside of the EU and puts them on the EU market needs
Mm-hmm.
to comply to the ESPR. What was the second half of the question? Uh,
First, do they have to comply, and if so, how?
yeah. So yeah, how of course compares like depends per company, but they need to comply to the same rules as hold for manufacturers in the
Yeah,
EU.
exactly. I don't
So
think there's a separate clause or section wherein they have to comply differently. I guess it's the
so
same if the product is sold in the EU.
the clause pretty much said for different, there were clauses for different actors. They all said the same, like they have to comply to the same rules. And
Mm-hmm.
if you know that a product doesn't comply and you are still importing it and putting it on the market, then you are liable for that, and yeah,
Yeah, of
you
course.
can get in trouble for that. That was essentially the clauses in the
Mm-hmm.
ESPR. So
Yeah.
yeah.
There is one question that is basically touches upon what we just mentioned. So, what role does product design play in meeting ESPR requirements? Which I guess is a pretty standard one. Do you want to take this, Emma?
Yeah. So what role is the product requirements? That's what you said, right?
Product design. Sorry, yeah,
Or
product
product
design.
design. Yeah, so
Yeah.
I think product design has a pretty big role actually in the ESPR yeah, requirements, because like we said before, 80% of the impact of a product is decided in the design phase. Of course, it's a little bit different for every product, but around that. And
Hmm.
also, the ESPR is really taking a life cycle perspective, and in the end, the life cycle of the product is decided during the design phase. So yeah, the design can make a big difference for your product, and yeah, and related to the rules also to imply to like include the yeah, fulfill the requirements. Sorry.
Hmm.
Um, yeah,
Yeah,
I don't know if you have
there
anything
is.
to add on that.
No, like I keep coming back to that particular statistic that 80% of a product's impact is decided during the design phase. So that inherently tells us the design phase of a product's life cycle is pretty important then.
Yeah,
As the regulation itself is basically eco-design for sustainable products, so it's more so that you need to be mindful of a product's impact during the design phase. So if you're thinking about designing new products in the next few years, I think it would be prudent to already start looking at the impact of it even before it goes into production. Would you agree?
yeah, I agree. I think yeah, I think we said enough on it. Like you just have so much impact on your product impact in the design phase,
Yeah,
essentially.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's one from Omar. It's basically, in your opinion, what are the big challenges that companies will face when complying and implementing the digital product passport? Would it be data access and security, data sharing? But what else?
Yeah,
Like, what would be the biggest challenges?
good question. So the EU stated so about the sharing, there should be a platform, and it shouldn't be like there should be a platform established where people can put their digital product passport. So this should all be arranged. I think in that sense, sharing might not be the hardest thing to do. Um, However, something what I think in general is hard is that this rule will apply to all products of a manufacturer, right? So
Hmm.
once there is a, or that's not true, but all products that have a delegated act. So if you manufacture similar products, it might be that you have to do this for all of your products, and that can be a big amount of products. And I think that might be a big challenge that you have to do it for a lot of products at the same time. And
Hmm.
another challenge might be that yeah, some of these things in the delegated acts might take time. We're of course talking about product footprinting, but there might be other things in there that might take time to learn and implement into your company and stuff like that. So that might also make it challenging, especially if you need an external service provider like us, for example, or if you don't have internal knowledge about these things or limited and you need external help, if your whole industry needs to comply, then that might also be a big pressure on the service provider market for this specific topic, and that might also make it hard to get this all done. That is also something I'm thinking about. For example, if you look at the specific market for product footprinting or LCA, like our market is still rapidly growing. Yeah, for us, finding people that can actually do LCA, I think a lot of companies have the same challenge. There's not a lot of people out there that know how to do it. So yeah, it could be that that gets very busy on these markets, and we all have deadlines. I think that would be maybe a challenge, the availability of
Yeah.
these services and implementing that.
Even more so, zooming in a bit, I guess the another challenge, of course, could be getting the primary data of your products as well, right? Like,
True.
of course, there's like our software, there are options to get secondary data, but like you said, the market is evolving in a speed where primary data is starting to become very valuable. So that could, in the next few years, also start becoming an issue. But of course, there are companies like us out there who can help you get those data, like make sure that it's high quality data as well, or if not, give you the option of relying on secondary data from databases, etc. But that could also be an interesting challenge to navigate.
Yeah. Um, So I see this question that we have. I think, yeah, we have had a lot of questions, but maybe we can address this one now. So, is there a quick and low cost way to have Mobius LCA validated? Maybe that's a good one to quickly still address while we're in here.
Mm-hmm.
So validation really depends on the amount of like the degree of validation that you need. It really depends on the rules. So there's different ways to validate things. So of course we have this one offering right now where we check your model and you can get a little bit more confidence that your model is correct, for example. So we're doing that in Mobius Carbon. However, if you have to validate according to a certain standard, that just requires more work. So to say there's a quick and low cost way to do that, I think it's the answer is no, not necessarily. However, I think that's also the case for other softwares. There are some softwares that offer the maybe the opportunity to give like pre-verified things, but those cannot be really adapted to your situation. So you're verifying something that's super general and maybe not getting you the value that you would get if um, if you did a more specific model. So maybe that's an answer to that question. So I don't
Mm-hmm.
really well.
Then I think we can do one final one.
Yeah,
Basically, yeah, how exactly EcoChain helps in LCA or PCF compared to Microsoft Excel in terms of effort, time, resources, and accuracy of
yeah.
results?
This makes a difference in many different facets, so I can just try to tackle a few of them. First off, of course, in Excel, you have to make sure that you're not making mistakes in your calculation, which I think, and you need to essentially build the whole framework to calculate your impact, right? While in software like the EcoChain software, but also other software like, of course, there is already a framework that helps you calculate this impact. So the whole infrastructure of the tool already stands. You don't have to build all your formulas. It already is there. Second big thing is that in LCA software, not all of them, but some, like ours, databases, environmental databases might already be embedded. So, like Sai already touched upon, it's very hard to get primary impact data. It's just simply not there still. So, having a database in the software already saves you money because you don't need to buy that database externally, but it also saves you a lot of hassle in having a centralized environment and being able to search within that database instead of having to put that in Excel yourself. So that is a second way that software helps. There's also just functionality built in to visualize your results and to like make scenarios and things like that. So overall, I think software can just make your user experience better and more effective and yeah, be more sure that your model is right and have access to the databases. That would be my
Exactly.
answer. Do you have anything to add, Sai?
The pretty much it. In the fact that it's automated, the engine would basically do the calculations for you. There's multiple ways you can visualize the data, and you can get access to secondary impact data, of course, apart from the usability features that you have, which would be a bit more tedious when you do it with Excel. Is probably much is not probably is definitely a breeze with software like ours, where you have options to say segment your data properly, workspaces to segment your data properly, and basically the intuitiveness of it trumps spreadsheets by a mile.
Yeah. And I mean, I
Yeah,
have to say, I love working with spreadsheets, but I still like calculating impact with the software
yeah,
more. So,
yeah, sure.
yeah.
All right. Okay. I think we can round it up with the final part, basically. So if
Yeah.
you move on to the next slide. What we have done is we touched upon a lot of eco design and product design, how it can help you in analyzing your product impact better and also complying to regulations like the ESPR. So what we've done is created a three-step guide to basically doing sustainable product design, which is it's called Eco Design Essentials. It's a free ebook. It's written by our experts basically, and as part of this webinar, we'll send it to you. You can download the ebook for free. You'll also get the recording and the slides of the webinar as well as part of the email. So look forward to that, and thank you so much once again for joining. We hope it was informative to you, and if you have any other questions as well, just send it across to us or just reply to the email that you get, and we'll answer that for you. Thank you so much, Emma, for decoding the regulation for us, and thank you to Nick for running the show behind the scenes. So thank you so much once again for joining. We hope you have a great day. Bye bye.